Good morning. Welcome to Books at the Bottom of the Stairs. My name's Lorene. Happy Canada Day for those of you who are in Canada, and for those of you who aren't. It's sort of like a national unified vacation across all of the country. And in Halifax, we've got absolutely gorgeous music. Maybe there's somewhere where they're playing music, but we've got gorgeous weather today, which is just lovely. Steve's gone for a sail. The cat has come in from sunbathing in the pink Adirondack chair. She's the only one who can use it because it's so rotten, but she loves it. So, and I had to show you this orchid. A friend of mine gave it to me about a little over, maybe as much as I'm going to say maybe as little as a year. And she gave it to me because she can't stand all these roots. They just freaked her out. And so I got it, and within 2 months it bloomed. It gave me a single bloom. And then here we are, almost a year later, and I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 blooming, and 1, 2, 3, 4, possibly 5 ready to come, and one has already come and gone. And I have done nothing. It's a little bit sunburned up at the top. All I've done is watered it and just tried to keep it watered over the winter. But isn't that a stunner? I have no idea what I've done right. And somewhere along the line, I thought orchids needed to be in a fairly shady kind of a situation. But this is a front porch, a storm porch that gets an awful lot of light one way or another. But at the moment it's shady, and it's the only shady spot in the house. So I threw my microphone into the back of the closet. I just had so many issues with it. And last week I ended up having to, it died partway through. It turns out there's a little battery in it, but what it doesn't have is some indicator or something to show the life of the battery. So even when I plugged it in, I didn't get a little icon message saying that battery was there, or I should say microphone was there. So it was just this tool that really was not serving me well in any kind of a way, because after having to do the same thing 2 or 3 times several weeks in a row, I just thought, no, this mic is not working for me. So I don't know whether there's a mic in my future. A tall, dark, and handsome Mike. Wouldn't that be fun? Hi, I'm already married. Okay. The mind goes where the mind goes. June finished. Newbery Awards for me is what I do in June, and I've spoken about it in earlier videos, so you can go back and look. But I have concluded 2024 winners and honorary mentions for the Newbery, which is an American Library Association prize. It's given out at the same time as the Printz Award, PRINTZ, which I have not put on my radar so far, but that's something I often do in the summer. And that one is for young adult books. So I did 2024 as well as catching up. I was doing 2011 as well. And what a rocking 2 years. I really was so happy with everything that I picked up. There wasn't a book that I didn't like, but there was a book that I wasn't enamored of. Now, I think it's still a really strong book. It was just not something I wanted to do. And that's Eagle Drums. And I'm not sure, let me see, where does this take place? I'm not sure if we even really know. It's more on the lines of myth and fairy tale retellings of, and trying to think, Inupiaq, author and illustrator, is the author, Nasugarak Rainey Hobson. She's a tribally enrolled Inupiaq author and illustrator. And, well, it has to be Canadian, so it's got to be from our north. Why, I wanted to be bounded in reality. So I think what I'm going to do is put a little note in my journal and just say, come back to this. Fiction is not reality, but I wanted something that was telling a story that was more about everyday life, I guess. That's what I really wanted to be doing. And so this one is where the hero, Pinyaz, family wants to get some obsidian in order to continue to make tools that they use for cleaning seals and so forth. And he has to go up to the mountaintop, and he's confronted by the eagle god, and his Pinyaz's two older brothers have disappeared on the same kind of retrieval journey. And I just wasn't there for it. So I'm going to put it aside. There is nothing wrong with that book. I'm 100% sure. It just wasn't right book, right time. But on the other hand, this book was a reread for me, and I'm so glad I chose to reread it and not skip over it. It's called Moon Over Manifest by Claire Vanderpool. Sorry. And so we've got this really sweet young girl, Abilene. She and her dad have been riding the rails in the 1930s America, and something happened to Abilene. Nothing terrible happened to Abilene, but as a result, Dad is realizing that she's becoming a young teenager, is just on the cusp, and being on the rails is not a place where she should be. It's just not safe. So he puts her on a train and sends her to the town of Manifest, which is where he had spent about 9 months or so as a young boy of around 12, and it had been a safe place for him. And in his life, which had not been, he'd not been a well cared for child. He kind of was. His mom died, but once she died, things started to go poorly for him. So he ended up in this town of Manifest, and the people there, really looked after him and protected him. But for a variety of reasons, which is what we are encountering in this story, he ends up back on the road. So this is a multi-plotted book, which I love when they can do it in a young middle reader, because quite often you just get a single or a dual line plot. You'll get the main protagonist having their own personal sort of inner journey kind of quest, and then you will also get some kind of adventure that they're on. And so, excuse me, maybe they're searching for treasure, maybe they're searching to find a way to conquer bad, maybe they're simply going to a new school and then they're confronting a new situation. So there's the external adventure that often happens, must happen for it to be a good book. And but this one has more than one. It has two timelines. We're in 1918, which is the time of just before America gets into the World War I, and it's before the big influenza comes, so it's just that little sort of slice of time. And we're also in 1936, which is coming out of the Depression a little bit. This is not in the Dust Bowl area. It's sort of Virginia, in a mining town. And Abilene has been sent to Manifest, and she's with a gentleman called Shady. And he runs this, it's both a bar and a church and a workshop. And he does a lot of outreach in his community, as well as for the, what would be called the hobos on the, riding the train rails. Abilene finds a box that has some letters in it and some little tokens, and she's wondering what's the story behind all of this. And she meets two young girls, and they become friends, and they decide that they're going to look for a spy. In the box, there was some reference to a spy, the Rattler. And so that's their adventure. And as she's going through, she's meeting different townspeople, in particular Miss Sadie, who is a diviner, and she tells fortunes, but she also is really the town listener. And people go to her with their troubles, and sometimes she helps them out with a soothing tea to help them sleep, or, maybe a little bit of first aid, but mostly she's just the town's kind of the heart. It's like everybody comes to her, and I don't think other people necessarily realize that they're telling their stories too. So she's the holder of decades worth of stories, and Abilene is being put to work in the garden because she broke something of Miss Sadie's, and so she both is doing the work for Miss Sadie as well as listening to the stories, and she is telling some of the stories back to her two little girlfriends. And so they've got this fun part about looking for a spy, but they're also trying to sort out, they're sort of anticipating where the story might go, plus they're having their own childhood dilemmas with their own parents and siblings and so forth. So we've got all that kind of thing happening, but we've also got the two characters in 1918, Ned and Jinx, and they are having kind of not the same kinds of adventures, but the same kinds of pressures, I guess. So Jinx is on the run because his uncle Finn has got him into a peck of trouble, but he's also a fairly skilled con artist, and using his con artist skills, he's helping some people in the town get through some, he's got some creative problem solving skills that they lack, and so he, on an individual level, helps someone here and there, but he also helps the town come together with this scheme that's going to keep the bad guys at bay. And Ned is his buddy, and Ned is a little bit older and decides to sign up for as a volunteer in the 1918 American joining of World War I. So we also have Ned's story happening in Europe. So we've got all these points of view, but we've got like an overarching kind of narrator. So we're not having to get inside each person's head. We're letting the writer is doing that for us. So thankfully, it's not too overpacked with characters, and it's not too overpacked with adventures. So I did read this a while ago. I probably read it back when it first came out, because I'm pretty sure to do 2010. I probably read it in 2010, so I'm not too far behind on this. And as I'm speaking to you, this little fruit fly has come onto the lens. I don't know if it's on the lens of the camera or just my side of the camera. Well, it's a fruit fly. Oh, I had the funniest story. Poor Steve's been losing his vision, which is not the funny part of the story. But we've been having moths, and we have a lot of wool in the house with carpets and things like that. And so every evening, just as we settle down to relax, we've got the tea and the coffee, we're thinking, oh, the day's over. And this moth, and Steve with his vision, he can't see it. And he's just like, I don't see it. And he knew I was getting really frustrated because I couldn't catch them, I couldn't kill them. And so he gets up and he goes over to the television, and he's got this little cloth, and he squishes the moth on the screen. And then he's trying to wipe it off, and it's not coming off. And I said, maybe you damaged the screen by squishing the moth on it. And he's going, oh, I don't think that would happen. I don't think that would be the case. And he steps back, and I said, I think it's the cursor. I think you've killed the cursor. So that was the end of that moth. Okay, tangent. So I'm so glad I've read this a second time. It was really worth it. I think that because there was so many layers to this book, that although I remembered aspects of it, I didn't remember a lot of the details. And so it was a joy to go back in, and it was a joy to see Abilene, it was a joy to see Abilene grow in things like friendship and trust and community, which were things she didn't experience when she was on the hobo lines with her dad. But also trying to figure out, like, what was her dad doing sending her so far away? Like, what was that all about? She had to sort out. And the story of Jinx and Ned, she's part of hearing the end of the story. So So that comes to a really nice resolution as well. I think this is a book I'm going to order and buy, because I can see myself rereading this in 4 or 5 years. I think it's one of those happy, gentle books that has enough action and human character in it that it's worth rereading. And I do have a few like that, where I'm just, it's more about getting into the character's life than, although I love a dragon and adventure, they can be fairly one-dimensional in a way. So this one just has so many dimensions that it's a satisfying read. And this is where I come to the statement that I sometimes believe that middle grade books are far superior than some adult books that I've had to read in the past. I bet you if I did better job of statistics, I would predict that most of my high-ranking books are proportionately in the middle grade section compared to my adult section. There are plenty of good 4s out there, but like a really good solid, boy, I'd like to reread that again. Not so often in adults. So okay, that's it for me on the Newbery Awards for June. I do have a couple of other things on the go. So one is, I just finished a writing course for the Writers' Federation of Nova Scotia. It was super. I've been in a real lull with my writing. I've done a lot of editing, and I've sent things out to see whether people want to publish me or not, and everything came back negatory. Now, I only put out one document, so not everything. That's like a bit of a lie. But I just decided to put everything on hold until the fall, and then really investigate self-publishing. And so while I was on this writing course, I got some pretty good tips on what to do with one of my products, which is a comic book. So that's great. And also, we talked a lot about the world of publishing and what you have to do even if you want to be self-published. There's just a whole other conundrum of things you have to do in order to sell a book, and that needs to be part of your individual's not so much capacity, because there's an easy to-do list that you just have to follow the steps, and it is entirely dependent on your energy levels. For me, it's around it's like I'd rather be writing. Anyhow, so there was just quite a lot of chat about that, and I think that was good, because I was in a room full of people who were experiencing similar kinds of dilemmas, and even if you do get published, which the people who were leading the workshops were published authors, they made the comment, that's not really a sweet ride either. So just, keep enjoying the writing process, because once you get published, then it really gets hairy. So that was my last week's adventures, and it really helped to lift me up. It's been a long haul this winter and spring, and I think it was the first week where I really just felt pretty close to unstressed, pretty relaxed every day, and I think that's good. I'm ready to kind of get back into life. And having said that, I have a to-do list of books for July. I went through all my books, and I haven't ordered from the library. Quite often when I do it this time of year, I put a lot of books on hold. But I think I will wait with that until closer to August, because there's still a lot of things happening in July, so I can't really dive down deep. Some of these books, I think every single book on this pile I have spoken about. So it's not going to be, full of revelations. You'll have seen some of these books. But the two that I haven't spoken about, I think, Interesting Facts About Space by Emily Austin. And this has just recently won or been an honorary mention for the Stephen Leacock Award for Humor. And my book club, Bookworm Adventure Girls book club, Reading Across Canada. I think that's what we're called. She has too many titles. yeah, so that's what we're reading for July, and it's supposed to be funny. So we'll see. I'm ready for a laugh. And the other one I picked up based on a movie that I really don't know how it came across my feed, but sometimes weird things pop up. So this is called Wish You Were Well, and the movie is based on a book by David Baldacci. I'm not sure I have read him before. There's one or two gentlemen authors who write soft books, I guess you could say, and there's one that I really don't enjoy. So this is a new to me author, and I'm reading it based on the movie, partly because I don't have a ton of books to recommend for books that don't crush your soul. But I thought, oh gee, if the movie says, if the book's as good as the movie, this could be something I could recommend. So that's going to go up on my to-do list fairly quickly. And the other one is The Lake House, Kate Morton. Now, this, I may have mentioned this already, but I've read a chapter or two, and so far so good. You know what? I'm going to leave it on a cliffhanger. I think I've spoken about it, and I think I don't really want to talk about it just because I'm not, yeah, okay. Brain fart. It's not calling to me to talk about. So we've opened up the camp last Sunday. That was really interesting. So we have had a big tree come down. It has missed the buildings by a fair amount. It's not dangerous, but it is a big tree, and it's blocking the path to the rest of the property. And it just narrowly missed Steve's boat. And what's beyond the tree is the shed where all our tools and everything are, and it's sort of it's hanging up in the branches, and its tip, because it hasn't fallen like that. It snapped off and fell like that. So this is just the tip of the tree, and we're looking at it going, I don't think that's a good choice to go under the tree. I think, plus there's all the branches there still, like we'd have to try and cut off a bunch of branches to make a tunnel. So I think we're going to have to call in a tree guy and see whether they can get it to the ground properly. And so, do you ever just want to be like a TV show, and it's like they open the door to the cottage and turn on the lights and it's seasonally ready? Or, it's the same thing, and they move into a new house and everything's already unpacked. I could go for something like that. So that's it for me. I hope all your reading and adventures continue to come true. I will see you next week with my July reading stack and possibly a few other things that I may have pulled from the library. Bye-bye for now.